I'll say that this is the most beautiful GT Aston Martin ever made. It is absolutely magnificent. You've had the chance to look around it. It's styled by Zagato, but I'll tell you all about the story behind it. Paul Spires is here, president of Aston Martin Works. If you want to join me up here, because I think you'll be the very well qualified. You did so well with me on the Bond car. No gadgets on this one, I don't think.
No gadgets, a few surprises maybe.
A few surprises, but no gadgets. So, let me give a bit of a background on the Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato, and correct me or interject whenever I say something wrong. So, Aston was racing. Aston's always been racing. They went to Le Mans and had very good success with the DBR1 and won Le Mans outright.
In 59, and the World Sports Car Championship.
You see, I knew he'd have things to add. They won Le Mans and the World Sports Car Championship, so Aston Martin, Le Mans winner. And at just at that time, the DB4 Aston was launched. Is that right? And your customers at the time started to want to race as well in GT cars. And so, of course, the first car you came to, the DBR1 plus one. Aston Martin is obviously a competition brand. They were racing with the DB4, but as far as I know, it was decided that there was a sportier car was needed, a lighter car was needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, at that point in time, there was this ethos that you raced it on Sunday and you sold it on Monday.
Exactly. So the DB4 GT was born. Now, that was a DB4 with a shorter wheelbase to make the car handle better and lighter. And on the DB4, therefore, it loses the rear seats. So imagine a shorter wheelbase, sportier car. And of course, the big changes as well under the bonnet, where the car was, or the twin plug head was introduced. So the Aston 6-cylinder inline-6 engine, but with a twin plug head. And this is the car that went out racing against Ferrari.
Absolutely.
Against the 250 short wheelbases.
The car of its day.
The car of its day. So it was Ferrari versus Aston Martin. And Ferrari, can I say they had the edge?
They
I guess
had
they
a more competitive package.
They had a more competitive package, but Aston had the answer, and the answer is what you see in front of you. Aston Martin went to Italy and went to Zagato and said, right, we need a more competitive car, so we're going to commission you to design. It wasn't about beauty, but it was designing a car that was even lighter. So the body that you see here was even lighter than the Touring Superleggero body, and more aerodynamic, a smaller frontal area, so that you could have more performance. Yes, we always talk about power, but your enemy in racing is also weight. And so this was the lightest version of the DB4 GT, and now called DB4 GT Zagato. Have I got the lineage right there?
Absolutely right, you're very good at this.
Thank you. And I assume, you know, I never really thought about it, but I guess at the time it was really for the wealthy gentleman drivers. I mean, it must have been a very expensive car to buy at the time, because only 19 were produced.
Yes, correct. There were only 19 original cars manufactured, and yes, many of the racing stables in their day bought these cars to go head-to-head. Particularly the British guys went head-to-head with the Ferraris against 250 short wheelbase, and then obviously against GTO.
Yeah, and then Ferrari then had the short wheelbase racing, and then they were sort of starting to lose ground, and so the new car was introduced, which was the 250 GTO, which then was competing against the DB4 GT Zagato. The car had good success in period. Only 19 cars were built, so today, to collectors, it's an extremely rare car. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we can say this is the most beautiful and the most desirable Aston Martin GT in the world.
Yeah, for sure. As a production car.
As a production car. I mean, I think that we would say the DBR1 that won Le Mans, of course, I mean, any Le Mans winner, wow, what a car. But as a production car, as a GT car, this is as good as it gets. And I think you'll all agree that the lines of this car, the beauty of it is just absolutely phenomenal. It was designed in Italy by Ercole Spada, who was, at the time, can you imagine, when he was commissioned to design this car, he was working as a Zagato, and he was only 25 years old. He had just joined the company, and rumor has it, or the legend has it, that he designed this car in just 10 days. He penned it out in 10 days, and there you go. Sometimes I guess you just get it right off the bat. And the great thing is they included some of those Aston features like the front nose. So although it's designed by Zagato, it's still very much an Aston Martin. They did away with anything that could save weight, whether it was on the inside, any little creature comforts that it would have had at the time, all gone. And here you have it, one of the most desirable cars in the world. But there was only 19. I think at Aston, and now I don't remember the year, there was 4 chassis numbers left for these cars. And in the era of Richard Gauntlett, 4 more cars remain at Aston Martin. And that's it. And now, to give you an idea of an original DB4 GT Zagato in value, it's going to be a 10 to 12 million pound car. How's that for a valuation? Isn't that unbelievable? That's how desirable they are. You'd like to? That's how desirable they are today, and how beautiful. I mean, I think you can't disagree just the sheer beauty of this car. So I think that's, I guess, the value of the car and how beautiful it is what gave you the idea, gave you the inspiration to start the project. Because we really haven't, we've talked about the history of Aston, but we haven't talked about this particular car. This is I'm going to call it one of your, it's like a bond project, it's like a special project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this came off the back of doing the standard DB4 GT body cars, which were fantastic, inspirational, and it made absolutely sense to us to then do a continuation of the Zagato. And we went to Andrea Zagato and I said to him, you know, we want to do these cars, what do you think? And he was absolutely thrilled.
Was he really?
Because we're coming up to their centenary. So to celebrate the 100 years of Zagato, to go back to their finest piece of work, for them was absolutely fantastic. So we have built now another 19 of these cars, and they've gone all over the world. Some of them are being raced this year as well, in various races, and it's a massive success story. And the fantastic thing is that actually Zagato's got together with Marek Reichman, our chief designer, and actually repenned the car and took out some of the bits that actually weren't quite as good on the original car, which is why this car looks so good, and it's actually symmetrical.
Yeah, you see, well, I was going to say, because although all these cars were built beautiful, but in the early 60s, these cars were all built by hand.
Yeah.
And there was, yeah, of course there was plans and drawings, but you've got to remember that a chassis was sent from England all the way to Italy, and then there was some workers in Italy, one at a time, that made the cars. And actually, it's really interesting if you look at the 19 original cars. Not only probably they're not symmetrical, but they're also all slightly different. Some have an air scoop on the front, some don't. Some have open headlamps, some have closed headlamps. So you've managed to spend some time and let's say iron out any of the differences or the little quirks that the car had.
Yeah, it was. We analysed the design in a very concise and controlled way, in the same way as we do with the modern car. So we put in virtual reality, we make sure all the highlighted lines work and are very, very fluid. And as I say, Marek and Andrea Zagato worked together to just produce this achingly beautiful car. And it's interesting because we've actually supplied a number of these cars that we've got the original cars, and they're blown away by the beauty and, to be fair, the quality of the fit and finish over the original car.
They'll probably then look at their original car and think, geez, I think I might return this one. What do you mean? There's a big gap in the door in my original car, because this is way over and beyond. And I can understand how Zagato would have been thrilled to do this. I think it's accepted this is one of the masterpieces of Zagato as a coach builder. There's very few cars that can trump this design and the beauty of this car. So you guys worked very, very hard in conjunction with Zagato to iron out all the quirks in the body. What about from a mechanical perspective? How did you tackle? I mean, you had some experience from the DB4 GT, but how did you tackle the mechanical side of the car?
So mechanically, what we want to do is give the car a higher performance index than the standard GT. Obviously, we've got both cars. So we increased the capacity on this car from 3.7 as the original cars were, up to 4.7 litres. And that gave us an engine that's around about 390 horsepower. And
390?
Yeah, 390 horsepower. it's it's a wild ride.
Well, I can imagine sort of you've got to think 390 horsepower, and there is definitely no electronic gizmos, no nothing. The tires are what they are. They're we're talking about 390 horsepower on tires. It must be very exciting to drive.
It is very exciting to drive, and unfortunately, I raced this car actually at Paul Ricard at the end of last year, and it certainly gets your concentration going.
So you've gone to the same work and meticulous approach with regards to the mechanical side to make it, let's say even better, perfected from the
Yeah, we did. I mean, when we went back to basics and we looked at what was available through our past operations and look at the castings that we've been producing for a number of years, they really weren't of a high enough quality. Bear in mind, this is a kind of £5 million motor car. So we wanted to be absolutely perfect. So we CT scanned an engine, checked out all the anomalies, and we actually went back to the people that cast all the engines for Mercedes-Benz and Honda Formula One, and we used that same metallurgy in this engine, which is why it's just so good and so robust.
Oh, that's unbelievable. So could we say that this now, having built this project, it must be the ultimate DB4 GT Zagato?
I don't think this car will ever be surpassed in my lifetime.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's really interesting, and still using the essence and the technology from 1961 when it was first designed and first thought about.
Absolutely.
That's quite something. And so, when did you start the project with these cars?
We started on the cycle plan for continuation cars in 2014, but it took quite a long time for people to kind of understand what we were trying to achieve and allow us to do it in this kind of way. I didn't want to just kind of go and make cars in a haphazard way. We had to have the right team. I had to have the right team to deliver the right quality that met with Aston Martin's current quality ethos. So that again is very difficult to do. So it takes a long time with these cars to actually get them to the point with such a large team where they are absolutely perfect.
Well, I can imagine that it must be a real challenge because you're taking sort of a 1960s technology or design, and yet you want to build them with the quality that Aston Martin has of 2020, yet you don't want to lose the soul of the car. It's so very difficult. How you must have had plenty of meetings back at HQ thinking, well, how far can we go and what's the right balance?
We love a meeting with them, Aston Martin, like most corporations do. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is very, very difficult to kind of overlay the quality ethos from a modern DBS into a car that was built so many years ago, where actually we look at the quality, and we looked at the quality on the original cars. We had a number of cars we looked at, and we kind of thought, we just couldn't produce this today. It wouldn't be acceptable to our customers. So things like the chassis is not only is it e-coat, it looks at black powder coat as well before we start to put the body on top. So we get rid of all the corrosion issues that there were in the day.
Right.
And there were loads and loads of little companies making bits over the years. But again, the quality wasn't what we wanted to achieve. So we had to go back to either retool up or ask them to, in some cases, we actually found a different company to make certain components for.
This is probably something that we don't appreciate, and often people talk about replicas and recreations, but I think that it's important for us to, especially it's interesting to talk to you to understand that you perhaps when people don't sit and think about it, people think, oh, this is just a copy, a two-room copy or of the original, but this is actually so much more because the engineering has gone in it and it's been done by Aston Martin. I assume this car, like the others, is built in Newport Pagnell?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Where you've been building cars for forever,
yep.
And you did it in collaboration with Zagato.
Yep.
So it's so much. It is. I think it sounds silly, but continuation is it is a DB4 GT Zagato. It's not a replica.
No, not at all. It's not a replica. It's a proper DB4 GT Zagato, and when we build this car, it goes through all of the test and development with a new car. So the test and development car, the sister car to this car, covered 3,000 kilometres around Nardo with people like Darren Turner and Peter Dunbrek driving the car back to back. So that is as hard as it gets, and certainly in its day, the original car would not have stood up that kind of punishment.
Well, yes, you were telling me Darren Turner did a 1 hour and 30...
1:47. Did an hour and 47 minutes in one stint.
1 hour and 47 stint driving this car around the circuit, and it didn't break.
No, and his hand was black and blue. It was completely bruised afterwards.
Darren Turner, Mr. Le Mans, his hand was black and blue, but
the car was in one piece.
But the car was in piece. I don't know if it's allowed, but I'm sure this is not too busy here. Do you think that you jumped into it earlier on? Do you think you would be willing to start it for us and let us hear sort of what your DB4 GT Zagato sounds like?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
Yeah, I think cars come alive when you start them up. So I'll stand here to get the full effect. The real moment of truth. This is when. I'm glad to see so many of you smiling. I think. Well, you're smiling as well, so it obviously you've driven this a lot, but it still makes you just as happy every time you hear it.
Every time I get in the car, I smile. I'm so proud of the team that delivered this car as well. They did a magnificent job. It's without doubt, it'll be the pinnacle of my career with Aston Martin.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I think the nice thing is that if you hear that exhaust note, yes, it's the best of everything because you've managed to give the car more performance and more power. But what makes me so happy is to hear the exhaust note, and it is absolutely true DB4 GT exhaust note. It's not changed. Not a little bit. It's not that you're hearing a wrong exhaust note. The shape of the car is absolutely right. I mean, I think you will all agree it is one of the most beautiful, but not even Aston Martin, it's just one of the most beautiful GT cars that you've ever seen. I think everyone's nodding. One last question. So, how many did you make?
Another 19.
To mirror the 19 that were originally made?
Yeah.
That's a very good idea. So everything has been really thought through as to how many do we make, how do we engineer the cars, and they've gone. And it's interesting also to hear that buyers and owners of original cars have bought these as well. I know a client of ours has actually received his not so long ago, and you'll be pleased to know that he commented to me as well that it drives much better than the original.
They do.
They do. There we go. It's the truth. Well, thank you very, very much for telling us about the DB4 GT Zagato that you have built. I think it's a fabulous, fabulous project. I think to have it here is just, I can just look at it all day. So thank you for bringing it along. Thank you so much. Thanks, Paul. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That wraps up our day with our car stories. But for those of you that haven't had enough and that are coming back tomorrow, we'll be back here tomorrow with more. Have a very nice evening. Bye-bye.